It is another episode of Amjambo Time. Thank you for all who help us to broadcast this unique program. I want to welcome our listeners in Maine and around the world. Here are our headline stories. A glimpse at what is happening with the Portland's 300 asylum seekers housed at the Expo Center. The deadline to move out is approaching. The city and partners are trying to find housing. Families who need 3 bedrooms are worried. A unique program focusing on immigrant and new generation children's literature.
And this is My Day with Pain, which is a sweet story by Tammy Charles about a girl's day in a rural part of Haiti.
We have the executive director from Neighbour Books on the program today. In a world where fraud and scams are prevalent, what about scams aimed at new immigrants? Scammers think they might be easy targets. We have scam awareness and fraud prevention expert from AARP Maine on our show. The Greater Portland Immigrant Welcome Center met last month to celebrate while unveiling new partnerships and new initiatives. The U.S. has pockets of religious intolerance and prejudice, and even violence. But thankfully not at the level experienced in so many countries. We have Rohani Parivash, a Mainer from Iran. She's calling for
definitely the international outcry definitely is helpful because no government wants to look bad globally.
You've probably already heard the news. Rwandan Clarisse Karasira will be in concert in Portland on August 20th as she launches her 3rd album, Bakundwa. Our own Kit Harrison had an exclusive with this international star. At Amjambo Africa, we bring new Mainers together with all Mainers. This is a collaboration between Amjambo Africa and WMPG of Southern Maine University 90.9 FM. My name is Jaha Kuzimana and I'm your host. Thank you for tuning in. The city of Portland and partners are working around the clock to meet the deadline of August 16 to vacate the expo, where hundreds of asylum seekers are housed thanks to the lack of housing. Amjambo has been following up this story. As of Monday, August 8, Jessica Grondin, the city's communication director, said that out of 300 people, 196 were still at the expo in need of housing. Among organizations that are helping is Quality Housing Coalition, which is involved in placing people in apartments and overseeing a hosting program. Amjambo visited the expo and talked with an asylum seeker who expressed desperation, especially for families that would require 3 bedrooms. It is hard for us who have kids and are looking for places with more rooms compared to those who need 1 or 2 bedrooms. He said he has applied for an Avesta housing unit. Among organizations that are helping is Quality Housing Coalition, which is involved in placing people in apartments and overseeing a hosting program. Victoria Morales, executive director of Quality Housing Coalition, told Amjambo, "We are asking everyone who has extra space in our larger municipalities in the Greater Portland area, Biddeford, Saco, Sanford, Freeport, Lewiston, Albany, Bath, Brunswick, Augusta, and Bangor to reach out for information about the Home Share Project to provide housing for people who must leave the Expo Center in Portland on August 16th. Every partner will receive our financial guarantee and year-long housing mentorship to support a successful housing experience for all. Contact the Quality Housing Coalition for more information on those important programs." In addition to Home Share, Project Home continues to provide housing with existing partner landlords and new landlords who are coming on board to those in need at the Expo. We are asking and encouraging all landlords and all short-term rental operators to reach out about partnering with us this year. Every partner will receive our financial guarantee and year-long housing mentorship.
Oh, Mama Land, wipe the tears of your children. Oh, Mama Land, give the chance your young boys and girls. Stop the lies. Oh.
It is a unique program focusing on immigrant and new generation children's literature nationally. Kristen Kapi is the executive director of Neighbour Books program. She tells me what they are doing to help immigrant learners to get involved in literature and books.
I am Kirsten Kapi, and I'm the executive director, lucky me, of I'm Your Neighbour Books. It is a nonprofit. We focus on immigrant and new generation children's literature. So, and in those pieces do two major things. We give books to immigrant families as soon as they arrive in Maine through Catholic Charities, and also through the growing unofficial channels. So we've been providing books to the Expo Center here in Portland, Maine. So that's our sort of direct service to families. Nationally, both in Maine and across the country, we build something called the Welcoming Library. So we are putting together collections of children's books. Primarily, our big focus is picture books, because we find that illustrated books work with all ages and all English language abilities, and that the 10 minutes you spend sort of with a family on the page can be really can change you. And so when we're working on both sides, so we're working with the long-term community to help build their cultural competency about new arrival communities, and we're working with new arrival families in these schools and libraries to make sure that their experience is represented in schools and public spaces. Because this all goes back to, I first came to Portland in 2001, and I was doing work in King Middle School, which is a fabulous space, still is, and they asked me to put together a new diverse collection of children's books for their collection. I was very happy to do so, and I laid it all out in the library, and the kids came to see it, and the first students through the door were two brilliant girls in hijab, and they said, "Where are your books on Somalia?" And it was 2001, right? I'd come to this community to work directly with students around children's books, around community building, and I'm meeting my first Muslim teenagers, and I have absolutely nothing for them, right? There were no books in 2001. There were no books with Muslim families for children. There were no books about East Africa, Central Africa for children, and certainly nothing about the African immigrant experience. So it was sort of, I'm Your Neighbour Books didn't become a project until 2012, but for me it really started in 2001, when I was so ashamed that I had nothing, right? I had nothing to offer. Like, the Somali families had just come to this white French Canadian Irish city, and there were no books to help their classmates explore their experience, and there was no place where those students were seeing themselves and their families.
So it's amazing how that experience has awakened your soul, and here we are now with something that can go back to solve the same problem you met. So how does that way of comprehending things can form the national opinion in many ways, even beyond the books? How do you think about it?
I personally can't do anything to expand immigration policy, right? Quotas, I can't open borders, but I think that our perception of who belongs in America, or who belongs in Europe, or who belongs in any part of the world can shift. And I really think that those shifts happen when we know someone, right? We know someone, and And we can't always have that experience face to face, but we can now have that experience, cross-cultural experiences, by reading. And I won't go into the psychology of it, but there is a whole piece of, like, it does work in our brains that if we meet someone on the page, we have better skills in having conversations one-on-one.
And let me ask you this. You mentioned that it's hard. The cycle of publishing a book is a hard one. And those little fellas, they have some stories. They can write some stories in an informal way.
Right.
So how can those stories be also taken into consideration? My daughter can come home with a story and, look, I'm an author, I have published a book,
Right.
and sometimes there is a content deep there, but you need to take it at that level, but it's meaningful in a way. So how can we have those stories, elevated in a way, informal, maybe not formal, but in a way that can help other kids?
Yeah, there's a couple of exciting things happening. So in a lot of school communities, they're helping kids go through the process so they feel like they are publishing something, right? But but there's also like sharing that with a broader group. And there are organizations like, there's one that I love. So, for example, there's this organization in Minneapolis called Green Card Voices, and they work with young people from, I think, like 15. So it's like ages 15 to 25, and they have, so it's memoir. So they're writing their own stories. And then Green Card Voices are collecting those stories into anthologies. And now they're even releasing them as bilingual graphic novels, as comic books. And they use an artist from the community. So there are ways finally in which small publishers are circumventing that like long delay and the barriers. And one of the things that we try and do is to, so we have a database, which is really nerdy, but it is the only database in books that identifies by the community represented. So we pull all those in to say, we finally have a Congolese story and it's actually here in this anthology and this is where you can get it. But there needs to be more systems like that. But we're starting to hear, like, we got a great call the other day from a multilingual teacher, and she's been writing stories with her ESOL kids, her English language learners, and she wanted to see if she can publish them on our site. So we're going to start putting those PDFs up, right? Because that's when you talk about your daughter, like that. We would love to do more of that, because it's all story. Like, it all moves us forward, and it doesn't need to be an award-winning children's author, right?
In a world where fraud and scams are prevalent, scammers think immigrants are an easy target. Easy and quick. What can they do to protect themselves? Jenny Morrison is here with us. She learns the scam awareness and fraud prevention efforts from AARP Maine. Welcome, Jenny.
New Mainers, people from other countries and who barely understand this culture or the language that is spoken here, namely English, American English, and they can be, let me call them, fragile victims of the scammers. So do you have any way you are helping them or you are trying to help them?
Well, you're absolutely right, Jean, that there are specific scams that focus on our immigrant neighbors and families and friends. Scammers are very good at finding ways in to exploit those who may be a little bit more vulnerable than others. So you just mentioned one that the English may not be their first language. So that already could be putting them at a disadvantage. They also, people from immigrant communities may also not be aware of all our laws and our customs, and they may not know, for example, that the IRS is not going to call you and threaten you and tell you you owe back taxes and that you'll be arrested. They do not do that. That is just not the truth. And if anyone listening gets such a phone call, please hang up, because that is definitely a scam. But they take steps to contact people from immigrant communities and say that they're from a government agency and that you're going to lose your benefits, or you're going to be deported, or you've committed a crime, or any number of things to try to make you think that you've done something wrong, and therefore you have to pay in order to make that go away. And none of those things are true. So really the best thing to do is please don't listen to those phone calls. Don't listen to those emails. If you get such a call or an email, I strongly recommend that you call that AARP number that I mentioned, or reach out to a friend, or reach out to a local community agency who you know is working with the community and who could provide a focus on what is going on.
Yeah. Do you have any other thing to add on this conversation?
Well, what I always like to say is that if you can spot a scam, you can stop a scam. And this is so important for us to work together. It's a community problem, but we can solve it by being a community. So I highly recommend that we talk about this, that we keep talking about it, and we learn from each other. If anyone listening has been scammed, or you almost got scammed, share that information with your friends and your neighbors, because then that way you're helping educate everyone around you as part of that network.
The Greater Portland Immigrant Welcome Center met last month to celebrate years of work while unveiling new partnerships and new initiatives. Listen to Reza Jalal, the executive director of the center.
So back in 2017, Immigrant Welcome Center was established, and it started from this floor. And a year later, it expanded to include the fourth floor in this building, where our language lab is located and our office is. And here we are. In 2023, we survived. I'm not going to mention the name, even the pandemic. And we're here, and not only we survived, but we thrived, in fact. And you'll meet some of our new team members. You would hear about the new partnerships we have created and some of our new initiatives. So you can say that it was a full circle, 2017, and 6 years later, we're here celebrating, announcing of launching of some of our new programs, new initiatives, and also talking about some of the new partnerships that we have created.
Today we have Rohani Parivash, a Mainer from Iran, on our show. She wants the world to know that the Bahai religious minority group she belongs to is facing persecution in her home country of Iran.
Yeah, so, I look at what happened to me. I had to leave Iran because of my religious belief, and a lot of us were expelled from university because of our religious belief. My father lost his pension because of our religious belief. But, I just wanted to clarify that those kind of fanaticism exist in all the religion. It is not just Islam in Iran. I'm sure that there are that kind of fanaticism in other religion, exists in other religion as well. So I'm not contributing what happened to me to the religious belief of those people, because unfortunately this kind of atrocity happened because of the fanatical ideology. And definitely, yes, that happened because a group of fanatical people believed that we are infidel and unclean, and they burned our home. And actually, when they burned our home, our house was not the only one. There were 500 homes in city of Shiraz, that it is in the history that happened to us, and it was solely because we were Baha'is. Because
That
of
is 79?
yes,
Okay.
1979.
Yes.
So nothing has changed for the Baha'i community in Iran. Like, still we hear Baha'is being arrested, put in prison. My own sister-in-law, my brother's wife, about, I think it was 5-6 years ago, she was arrested because they had a meeting at their home and they were sitting and saying prayer. So they broke into their home, they took every electronic thing that they had, they confiscated everything they had, and they put her in solitary confinement for a month. And then after the month, they released her because they didn't have really any evidences. They just, a woman who is raising 2 kids, doing nothing wrong, was arrested. So they released her and they were trying to build a file for her. You know, and one of the reasons that they arrested her was the fact that, you know, the Baha'i community from the beginning was persecuted in Iran. Even our prophet and his family were actually banished from Iran by the government of Iran at the time. And he was banished to Iraq, to Turkey, and ultimately to Ottoman Empire, and then ultimately it was Israel.
My land, why still all these conflicts? Oh, my land, why still extra?
You have probably heard the big news. International star Clarisse Karasira, now a Maine, is in a concert in Poland on August 20 as she launches her third album, Bakundwa. She has been allowing us to use her songs on the show since her arrival in Maine from Rwanda. We thank her so much. Our own Kit Harrison had an exclusive with this international star. Take a listen.
So I do want to hear about the new album. I want to understand what Bakundwa means, because I don't know, and I'm very interested in knowing, like, you know, what are you trying to say? Not literally, but in a bigger way on that album. You know what?
Oh yeah, thank you. Bakundwa is a Kinyarwanda word which means beloved, like beloved people, my beloved people. So Bakundwa means beloved, and I named the album Bakundwa because it came as a letter I'm writing for the people who listen to my music, the people who will listen to that album, because this is my third album and it is very, very special. Like writing the songs on it, like it was unique. It was different from how I used to compose songs back there in Rwanda. Like I was new here, starting a new life, and too much things going on, and I thought of something like a great message that like I want to write as a letter to the people who listen to my music, but again in my line, which is humanity, peace, unity, and life development. So that's it.
What do you mean by life development?
Most of the songs that I used to sing in previous albums, like there are some songs that I sing about things that like make people like in my community, in my country, like live well and live together well and achieve new things in life together.
So for you, peace and living in community and living in a positive way basically is very important. Is that a message that you pretty much include in all of your music?
That's the message, and but most of all, the unity and peace. That's what I promote the most, because I come from a community which was divided. There was genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda, and like it's like starting my music, I felt like I have since I have a big voice, or I can be heard by different people, I can use that voice to unite people even more and to cultivate peace. And
so you said that it like your music here, or when you started to write your music here, that it was different, and I'm not sure in what way it was different.
It was a different experience, since like I was away from my family, from the whole country, like from the community I was doing my music before in. So the experience of writing this album was different. So I felt like I'm writing a letter to my beloved people who listen to my music, but like somehow different.
Were you thinking mostly of your people back home? Like a letter to your people back home, in other words?
Yeah, that's pretty much what that was in my mind. Like some people, like after giving birth, some people like used to write on my social medias like, oh, we want to see your songs often, like it used to be like since we don't see you here in the concerts in Rwanda and those kind of things. And I did it as a letter. There are the songs, as like I continue to release the songs, but I felt like there are special songs like a letter to my beloved.
Am I right that the album hasn't dropped yet, right?
Yeah, it hasn't dropped yet. We just released only one song on it, but other songs will be released on like since August 20.
But that's also the date of the concert, right?
Yeah, that's when we are launching the album. Normally in my country, when you have an album, when you are a music artist, when you can, you do like a concert to release the album, and you celebrate it.
That makes me wonder, when did you start singing? Like, or I mean, I imagine you've been singing ever since you were a tiny little girl, but when did somebody say to you, hey, you might want to consider doing this, professionally? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, I remember. Like as you said, I started singing when I was a little girl. Like it's a long story, but professionally, I started singing in 2018. Before I was a journalist. I was a TV news anchor and a reporter, but like I always had a dream to become a music artist, because I've been composing songs since when I was a teenager, and I had a notebook full of songs, so I wanted like my talent to go out. So in 2018 I left journalism, which I was doing for 3 years, and then I started it professionally. That's when I recorded my first song, Giraneza.
Amjambo Time is brought to you by Jaha Kuziman. Have a great day.